How's it going, guys? It's your boy Mike from Seattle, and today I have with me an extremely special guest, somebody that I've heard many things about over the last couple of years, and this is Farris Gosea. Farris invests in the Midwest, and he casually has on his Facebook profile the introduction stating that he has over 900 rental units and $110 million in real estate. I think that makes my entire portfolio somewhat of a rounding error when you compare it to his. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to chat with him. Now, Farris, on your portfolio, it says you're originally from the UK. What brought you over here to invest in the Midwest?
Yeah, so actually what brought me here initially was college. So back in 2012, graduated high school, went to the University of Illinois, straight from high school, and was playing tennis there. So that's how I ended up in the USA.
Okay. And you just decided to stay here? You didn't go back home?
Yeah, I decided to stay here for a year or so after college. I played pro tennis, got to about 400 in the world. Just didn't really like the travel aspect of it. Wasn't making much money at that level. So decided to jump into tennis coaching. Had a really good offer to privately coach in Northwest Indiana. And that's how I ended up getting turned on to this area. So moved to Northwest Indiana, started privately coaching, and yeah, just stayed in the US. I much prefer it here than Europe.
Well, not to get too far off the real estate topic, but what makes you like the U.S. more than being in Europe, where you're from?
I think capitalism is the easy answer. This country, you can make things happen, and Europe, you just can't. It's just a lot tougher.
Right. Interesting. Well, I might circle back to that in a little bit, but I do want to get people some of your story. So, I mean, I was unbelievably inspired, not only what I had heard from people who have worked with you, some of my former real estate agents, people that I've worked with in the past, but I started reading your story. And at 24 years old, you have zero rental properties. And within 5 years, you have 900 rental properties. And according to your bio, it says 500 of them you own completely by yourself. Is that correct?
It's about 670 of those. Yeah, that I own personally, and then it's a couple of partnerships on some of the smaller stuff that attributes to the other ones.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think what people would be very interested in is not only how you got your first few deals, but then how you started ramping up. So I watched your story, and it seemed like we had a very similar beginning. You bought a single family house, a couple of duplexes and fourplexes. Tell us about those first few deals.
Yeah, so the first few deals for me were really interesting. Got under contract back, this year at this time 6 years ago on my first single family home, and like any new investor, pretty shaky, pretty nervous. The inspection report comes back. There's a few miscellaneous things. Doors broke, this and that. I told my realtor, I'm like, get me out of this deal. Like, what's the fix? I can't handle this. So, but I stuck with it. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this deal and see how it goes. I'll try, one single family home in Munster. I bought it for 100,000. And once I closed, that's when I tried to figure out how to do stuff. So how to rent it out, how to screen tenants, where do I get the lease? And, I think diving in again is the best way to figure things out because it kind of forces you to figure those things out. So yeah, my first one was a single family home. At that time, a duplex popped up on the same street. So I took that one on too, and I kind of ran out of cash. This was back 6 years ago. Had the 3 units. Had to rent two of those out. One had a resident in it who actually just left like a month ago, so 6 years later. But yeah, those are my first few deals. Again, just had to learn the ropes as I was going through it.
Now, real quick, how did you even come upon the idea of real estate investing? You went to college. What'd you get your degree in? Then you start playing tennis. Take us there.
Yeah, so got my degree in history, nothing to do with anything real estate related. I started off in aerospace engineering, but that with the tennis is trying to do two full-time jobs, so it was just too tough. So ended up in history. My parents were a little annoyed at me for obviously, engineering and history, two different things. But ended with a history degree. They had a few rentals back home, but let me back up. So started privately coaching, took my Series 7 and Series 4 financial exams. The father was at the Board of Trade in Chicago. I was thinking maybe I'd move into finance, but the more I kind of learned about the stock market and the more I studied it, the more I learned you can't really control anything, or there's really nothing you can do other than try to mitigate risk as much as possible to actually understand, like to, not for a fact, but to definitely make money in some kind of way, With real estate, if you buy something for 100 that's worth 150, you definitely made money. Mm-hmm. So my parents had 6 houses back home, and they're like, why don't you try real estate? It's slow, steady, it's income over time. So I was like, you know what, let me try it, and started looking for houses on the market to purchase. And actually, the first time I downloaded realtor.com, I scrolled maybe one finger length. And I was like, oh, 100K house in months. That seems pretty cheap. And I just bought it. So it didn't take too long to find
That's a
something.
lot of market research right there.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, month's a good area, 100K. Looks like Zillow rents them for 1,200. I'll take it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of where I started. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's so funny. Okay, so you decide, all right, stock market, it's a little more inconsistent. I like the idea of real estate. And it sounds like the strategy you were using was immediately, I know if I can buy something under market value, $100,000 property that I know is worth 150, I picked up $50,000 in equity. And then if it cash flows on top of that, fantastic. So that is a pretty screaming first deal. But I want to know, how in the world do you go from 3 in 2018 to 900 by 2023? What does that look like? How do you make that happen?
Yeah, so I'll try and talk through it as concisely as possible. So initially starting off, when I bought that for 100, it was probably only worth 100. It wasn't worth the 150. I was buying market rate deals, but in the Midwest, as you know, especially pre-COVID, with the rates where they were, things were cash flowing pretty good.
Right.
So for me, I was like, okay, you know, the one unit's great, the duplex is great, and for about 2.5 years, I just kind of was on a slow cadence. So I got to about 40 units, I believe, after 2.5 years.
Okay,
And
Farris. There's
yeah,
nobody who's watching this who thinks going from 0 to 40 units in 2 years is a slow cadence, all right? You're so much better than everybody else. You're making us feel bad about ourselves, all right? Remember, we're normal people,
well,
okay?
I don't think the word is better. I just think I just, you know, some luck in there, and I just loved it every second, every day. But I saved a ton of money, as much as I could from my job. Was really frugal to the point where I would unplug the microwave every night. Now I know that doesn't save too much money, but you know, it's the thought that counts, right? I was unplugging the microwave. So yeah, went 0 to 40. I was about 2.5 years. And so to get there, I was cold calling basically all the owners in Northwest Indiana. And after, you know, house number 7, so I had single family duplex, 4 unit house, 7 units. Nothing was really coming up for a couple of months. So my friend was like, hey, why don't you try reaching out to owners directly? So at that time, I started cold calling owners and kind of offering them a little below market value to try and get, you know, some value day one. So I did that. I did get to about 40 units in the next, you know, year and a half there. And I took those 40, and then through COVID, obviously values went up, as we all know.
Right.
And I got some good deals, and I took those 40 and pretty much cash out refinanced as much of that as possible, probably 60 to 70% of the portfolio.
Mhm.
And I had some cash saved up, and that's when I started to buy some, you know, bigger deals. So I went 14 unit, and this is with some partnerships. So I went 50-50 on a 14,
Sure.
50-50 on a 28 unit shortly after that, 2 months later.
Sure.
And just to put that in perspective, the 28 unit that I bought it for 1.7, but it probably worth 3.2 now. And 7 months later, we refinanced out at like 2.8 million. So it
Wow.
was stuff like that was getting me the cash back quick.
Right.
Later that year, I bought a 32 and a 33 unit, and same thing with the 33. 3 months after buying that deal, all my cash was out of the deal.
Mhm.
Just again, reaching out to owners, they kind of didn't know where the market value was, and you know, I was just refinancing that kind of stuff. So that really helped me scale quickly, was the cash out refinances and
Sure.
finding the value in these deals. And then also at 40 units, I started getting into brokering.
Okay.
And the last 2 years, I've probably made 7 figures plus being a commercial real estate broker. So I've pretty much put all that money into buying rentals.
Yeah.
So that's really helped me. And then obviously cost segregation is a huge thing where I pay zero federal taxes. So that's helped immensely, not having to write 600K checks to the IRS. So yeah, all that stuff combined, I think has really helped me, you know, obviously go from 0 to where I am now and scale as
So
fast as possible.
So there's a few things in there that I think we got to unpack. We got to dig down on just a little bit. One of those things being, it wasn't until you started buying larger properties that you partnered up with other individuals. So you got to 40 units by yourself, but you told me you kind of ran out of cash around the first couple of purchases. So where did you get the money to get those first 40 units? How'd you fund those deals?
Yeah, I had to keep saving up. So I'd save up the money and I had to go buy another one. Save up the money, go buy another one. So that's
And
why
were you
initially,
saving from your regular job or like the cash flow from the rental properties? Just
yeah, both. So regular job and cash flow, just kind of saving up money as fast as I could. My job as a tennis coach, I was probably making 150 to 200. So, you know, wasn't terrible. I was working a
that's
lot of
pretty
hours.
good.
Yeah. So I was saving as much cash as I could from both things, and then going and investing and buying a, you know, buying a property.
Right. All right. And on those first 40 units, were you just getting a lot of traditional mortgages, like 20%
Yeah.
down, fixed rate, 30-year mortgages?
Yeah, everything, all those were mostly traditional, 20% down, 25% down on a multi,
Okay.
traditional mortgage until I ran out of conventional lending, or it got
Right.
really annoying when you hit that kind of 8, 9 mark, because 10 is pretty much the max.
Right.
So then I did go commercial lending for a couple duplexes and 4 units.
Interesting. So then you start partnering with other people, and you said you went 50-50 on some larger buildings. I think you said like a 14 unit, 28 unit, something like that.
Yep.
When you structure those partnerships, what did that look like? Were you 50-50 both in the money you brought, or were they bringing all the money and you were bringing the experience and you were managing the deals?
Yeah, so we have 50-50 in everything, the money and the management of the deal. And to preface this, I do not recommend partnering, even though I love the people that I did buy stuff with before. It's just better to control the entire deal yourself, own
Mm.
the whole win yourself. If you can figure it out, do it on your own. It is better. But 50% of something was better than zero at that time. And that's kind of
Right.
how I knew to get it done. So yeah, 50-50 on pretty much everything.
Now, you said that you were taking the values of these properties up and then cashing out, getting a big check back and buying another one. How did you take values up? Was it through forcing rents up and therefore the appreciation? Or were you buying some remodel projects? What were you doing?
So, a couple ways. Number one, I think people discount the fact that if you speak to 500 people that own properties, like one or two of them are not going to know what it's worth. So,
Mm.
there's value in the fact that you vetted so many deals that you found a couple that just are in the money day one. And as a good example, 106 unit I bought a month ago for 6.7, it appraised like right then at 9.2. So that's 2.5 million in the money, but people don't see the 600 deals that I've had to look at,
Right.
this entire year to get one that really you can nail. So there's a lot of value in looking at a ton of deals, and also there are deals where you can just get the rents up without having to remodel. The
Mm.
rents are just low, so it's both aspects of those two aspects. But when it comes to renovating things, I don't think people, and especially me as well, they can't get it done fast enough to where you can scale this quick. If you have to take a 20 unit or a 30 unit from having to remodel half of those units, it's going to take you a lot longer than you
Right.
might expect. People stay, it could take you 2, 3 years to get that money out if you have to do those renovations. So
Sure.
it does get very tough.
Do you manage all these properties yourself? You have your own management company?
Yeah, I have my own management company, so we're about staff of close to 20 now that manage it. A lot of maintenance technicians. But yeah, it's managed in house. I don't have third
That's
party management.
impressive. So you said that the way that you were finding a lot of these different deals was you were calling owners, and what you also followed up with is people don't realize you had to call 600 owners to find one or two deals. How are you finding these owners? Where are you sourcing these leads from? You sending out mailers, just Googling who owns buildings?
Initially, it was the county website that I was just kind of going on and clicking around and trying to figure out what was what. But the softwares we use now are obviously a lot more advanced. Reonomy is a good software we use for multifamily, probably 2 to 40 units. And then CoStar is something really, if you want to get into larger buildings, you can't not have.
Sure.
Obviously, they're subscription based, you got to pay for those. But yeah, that's what our team uses now. And obviously, at this point, I'm not doing the calling. We have 16 fantastic brokers that will call throughout the Midwest. So that brings in a good deal flow for us.
Well, real quick on that last point you just made, how much of your ability to scale came from hiring people to help you do the work, like calling all these brokers? Because you're one man, you can't make all those calls yourselves while still managing properties.
Yeah, for sure. So being able to manage people and delegate tasks and keep them happy and with you, it's tough. It's not easy, but I try my best every day, and definitely you cannot scale without being able to have people around you that want to work for the company.
Yeah, a friend of mine out there manages properties in Northwest Indiana. His name's Adrian. And he recommended a book to me called Who Not How, and the entire idea behind the book is it's who is going to help you build your dream, not how you're going to do it, because you can't do it by yourself. So I think it's a very powerful point a lot of people overlook sometimes. And when it comes back to some of these larger unit buildings that you started to buy, these bigger projects, I know that on your profile it said that you started buying 100 unit plus complexes. What does the financing structure look like on that? How are you funding those deals? Are they seller financed, owner financed? What are you doing?
So all of them pretty much bank debt.
Okay.
Typical, 20% down. The last one we did, banking environment is a little different. So it was 25, and obviously it has to cover a certain DSCR ratio. You have to have certain personal net worth, liquidity, all that kind of stuff. But not any different than kind of buying a 10 unit. Just a bigger deal. Obviously, you have to get a survey. You might have to get one on a 10 unit too. Environmental report has to come back. Typically, no issues with multifamily buildings. The last one I did, actually, this 184 unit, was a seller finance deal. But again, it was going regular bank debt until he called me up like a month and a half into the deal and offered me like way better seller financing terms. And it wasn't a land contract. It's a management agreement with an option to buy in the next year, because he didn't want to transfer title, and then he does have the capital gains, cannot 1031, that sort of stuff. So it was a little more complex than your regular seller financing, but no, none of these 100+ deals. It's pipe dream to think that these go seller financing. Like, they just want their money, they want to sell the building. Not typical at all. We've probably spoke to, over the years, 2,000 plus 100+ unit owners, and either they don't want to sell, or if they're going to sell, it's going to be straight deal. Like, no one's really taken on seller financing. So the ads you see online, I'd be very cautious when people are telling you they're buying 100+ with owner financing. It's not that simple.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that. So I've bought a decent amount of single family houses, duplexes, that type of stuff on seller financing. And it's a little bit easier probably to do those. I have a couple of friends who have been on a similar trajectory to you. Their names are Cody and Christian. They've done 0 to 250 units in the last 3 years out here in the Washington area. Now, they don't buy 100+ units. They buy 12 to 35, 40 plexes. And they've managed to get seller financing, I believe, on every deal they've done. Is there a big difference between those mid-sized 12 to 40 units and the 100+ unit sized buildings?
I think there's a difference in terms of the ownership. A lot of times 100+ very sophisticated owners with a larger portfolio. They don't just typically own one building, or it's like an institution, that you're working with. On the 12 to 40, typically it's more of the mom and pop investor. They may only own one building, and they might like the income stream. So they might be okay with a seller financing deal where they are still getting income over the years, instead of just selling the building outright. So there's a little difference there. But again, we've called a lot of the 10 to 40 product, and it's still tough to get that stuff. So yeah.
So you're real quick, just for the people who are watching this, 900 rental units in a portfolio. How many states does this portfolio span, and where are they?
Yeah, it's just two. So Northwest Indiana, got 160 unit, a little more central Indiana, about an hour away from the Northwest region, and then South Michigan, like 20 minutes from South Bend.
Okay. What is the craziest real estate story you've had? Any crazy tenants, any buildings burned down? What's the worst thing that's happened to you?
I mean, having this many, you have a crazy story every day, man. It's not like no day goes by FBI knocking the door down, people
No.
yeah, I mean, tree falling on someone's house. Like, probably the worst one I had was recently. What happened wasn't bad, just kind of the lead up to it. So I was actually at Disney World in line for the Tower of Terror, like 7 p.m. and I get a call from my guy, and he's like, "Hey man, we got like 5 fire trucks outside the building. Like, there's a fire. Just let you know we're on it." And this was the second fire I've had. The first one took out a unit. Obviously, this many units, you're kind of going to have a fire, but I've never really gone through the process of a building burning down. And I was like, holy shit, like 14 firefighters, like 5 trucks. I'm like, the building's going to be gone for sure. There's no way it's not gone. And my director of maintenance gets there, and he's like, just a cigarette out back, $500 of porch damage, like nothing crazy. I was like, why are there so many fire trucks here? So that one was the worst in terms of like kind of what was going through my head and what happened. But other stuff, the typical people thinking like a toilet's clogged is the worst thing. I mean, we've had units flooded, like pipes break and flooding. I mean, but again, like it all is part of what you do, and it's all factored in the numbers. You just deal with it. You write the check, and you move on. Like, we'll probably get 30 maintenance requests, 20 every single day now of just stuff happening. So
when you have that many units, how are you going to avoid it, right?
yeah, no, just stuff happens. So I just think if I had some advice for people, like the toilet getting clogged or the things that you think horrible stuff, like you'll just deal with it over time, and the tolerance for dealing with that will just go up.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you make right there. And this is something that I think is a great life philosophy. I think you can typically point to the success of an individual and measure it by how well they are at handling stress. And I can only imagine 900 rental units and 16 brokers, and I'm sure a whole handful of other employees and property managers. You've got a lot of people that are relying on you. So you probably have to have a pretty good ability to handle stress. How did you develop that skill of being inoculated against stress? Were you born with it or did you develop it over time?
No, I don't think I was born with it. And I think that, incrementally as you go, like obviously, if I was handed this at the beginning, a 900 units, I was,
Right.
my third deal was a 4 unit. And I was like, wow, four, that's a lot to rent out. I asked my buddy actually, I was like, hey, do you want to split this one? Cause like four's a lot, man. I don't know how we're going to deal with four. So I think just as you grow over time, you just kind of get used to, just adding here and there what you need. But going from like 0 to 900, I could not deal with that. But just kind of dealing with what I've dealt with over time, I think, helps. Obviously, there is stressful days, but you just kind of deal with it. And I think having the long-term goal, the long-term vision that's still very far away from where you're at, I think I still don't feel that big because my long-term goal is 50,000 units. So for me, being at 900, I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of starting out.
Right.
I think a lot of people think, oh, I want to get to like 50 in 5 years. And that's great. That's an amazing goal. But, I think that can add stress to them when they're like at 20, they're like, oh, wow, I got 20. It's a lot. My main goal is 50, which is huge. Like just kind of expand that goal and expand, what you think you're capable of. And I think it'll just make everything at the current time seem a little easier, knowing that your goal is so distant and so much bigger than where you're at right now.
Mm-hmm. So 50,000 is your long-term goal. Why 50,000?
Um, Honestly, that would put me in the top 10 of like actual ownership groups in the US, and that's including like institutions like pension funds, all the big groups. So, I don't know, that's just a number I feel like is attainable if I'm like 90 still buying stuff.
Right. Well, 50,000, well, shoot, man, 50,000. I mean, at that point, I'm considering this a hostile foreign takeover. I mean, like, you're just coming back at us for the War of 1776 or something. The Brits are just coming to own this country. That's a
It's so
lot.
funny. Yeah, it's a lot of units, but again, like I just enjoy the challenge of seeing like, okay, now I'm at X. This is challenges that I didn't expect or didn't foresee. How can I get past these challenges and these hurdles? And I just enjoy like, okay, this is a challenge. How can I deal with that? How can I progress past that? And I think that's a lot of fun for me is like kind of coming up with solutions to those problems. So I just want to see how large I can get before I'm like, oh wow, this is, he has this obstacle, and I don't know, I just like trying to get past obstacles, I guess.
So I asked you what the worst thing was that's happened to you so far, but why don't we flip that? What is the best part about investing in real estate? Maybe something you didn't expect or something you might have, but what's been the best thing that you've experienced so far?
I think the best thing is obviously, the time freedom that comes with it. Like you kind of get at a certain stage, you get to choose your own day, right?
Mm.
I mean, you're not having to be tied to a desk for max amount of time every week. So for me, I think it's just the time aspect of it and getting to do something that I love every day, is a really, really cool part of the whole real estate investing journey. And yeah, it's an adrenaline rush. I love, I do like buying stuff. I just, it's more so real estate than consumer products, but I do enjoy buying things. So
It is a skill. Finding and purchasing real estate is an amazing skill. And people sometimes think they don't have it, but I tell people all the time, you can develop it, you can practice it, you can learn it, especially when it comes to things like stress inoculation. That, in my opinion, is something that you can, as you mentioned earlier, you kind of just grow into as you were stressed out by 4 units, but eventually you're at 900 and it's just another day. One last question for you. Who inspires you? Who do you look up to and why?
that's a great question. I think the guys like Buffett, Bezos, Musk, all those guys are pretty inspirational, not just because of what they've amassed. I think people forget sometimes that, there was a point Bezos was making whatever, 500 million a year, and he was extremely rich like 5 years ago.
Mhm.
And he was still like, no, I want to keep growing. I want to keep pushing myself to see what this company can be and what I can do. And that's an extremely tough part of any business, to be sitting there, even like think about it, making $3 million a month doing nothing, right? Are you good? Like, I think most people are good, but
Yeah.
to be like, no, I want to keep pushing and keep growing, and like really that attitude of just wanting to do more. And I think that's really cool, and it's inspiring to see guys that wanted to just keep going.
Mhm. No, I agree completely. And it is kind of amazing. Elon Musk, very interesting person. I mean, he built PayPal, sold that thing for hundreds of millions of dollars, and he could have checked out, taken that money, and just gone and sat in a private island with Instagram models for the rest of his life. But instead, he dumps it all into SpaceX and Tesla, and decides to just keep on pushing. And you got to wonder, like, what is it inside of people like that that just continues to drive them for the next thing and the next thing? And it's very inspirational. So
Yeah, I think they just love what they do, and I think that's something pretty cool. I've always asked, I typically ask people this question because it intrigues me. If you could have $1 billion, but you couldn't do anything productive for the rest of your life, you could golf, you go on a beach, you could do anything you wanted, just nothing productive like working or giving back to charity or helping people out. Just literally, here's $1 billion, do whatever you want. It isn't productive, and a lot of people have to like think about that. I'm like, it's an immediate no. Like, obviously, what are you gonna do? Yeah, what would you do all day long on the beach? It's not that fun traveling, golfing. So that's just an interesting thing for me when I ask people and they have to think about, like, well, do I take the money? It's like, no way, dude. I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny. Sometimes I've been asked questions similar to that. For me, the answer is immediately no for two reasons. Number one, if somebody gave me $1 billion, I didn't earn it, and I would never respect myself for taking the way out. Well, Farris, I really appreciate you spending the time this morning. You have an amazing story. The last thing I got for you is, where could people follow you? Do you have an Instagram, Facebook, YouTube? Where can people find you and follow you?
Yeah, Facebook is probably where I post the most. Just my name, Farris Gosea. So they can find me there. I don't have the YouTube channel yet. I tried to start on Instagram, but it got 3 posts in, and it was just another thing that I had to do in my day, and I couldn't keep it going.
I empathize completely. I loathe and detest how frequent you have to post on these social media sites. It's very annoying. So I will put the link to your Facebook page in the description of this video below. Farris, I really appreciate you stopping by and having a conversation. Thanks for being here. And hopefully, guys, if you like this video, please leave a comment down below. Next time I chat with Farris, if when he gets to 10,000 units or whatever we talk again, I'll ask him some of those follow-up questions. Farris, I appreciate you being here, man. We'll talk later.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.